Hello students, hope you are doing well. In this video, we are going to discuss WAN design of Unit 4, designing remote connectivity for the subject Enterprise Network Design of B7 Semester IT, University of Mumbai. In this lecture, we will discuss WAN design, which includes application requirement of WAN design, where we will discuss response time, throughput, packet loss, and reliability. Technical requirement with respect to maximum offered traffic, technical requirement with respect to bandwidth, evaluating the cost effectiveness of WAN ownership, optimizing bandwidth in a WAN, which includes data compression, bandwidth combination, window size, queuing to improve link utilization, congestion avoidance, traffic shaping, policing to rate limit traffic classes. So before going to start WAN design methodology, we need to recall prepare, plan, design, implement, operate, and optimize methodology. The methodology paused here followed the guideline of this. Okay, this is PPDIOO methodology already discussed in Unit 1. The network designer should follow these steps. Number 1, analyze customer requirement. Number 2, characterize the existing network and site. And number 3, designing the network topology and solution. So this is design, characterize, and analyze. So let us discuss each one in detail. So in first step, analyzing customer requirement, the initial step in the design methodology is to analyze the requirement of the network and its users, including the type of application, the traffic volume, the traffic pattern. User needs continually change in response to changing business condition and changing technology. For example, as more voice and video based network application become available, there is pressure to increase the network bandwidth. Now come to second step, characterizing the existing network and site. The second step is to analyze the existing networking infrastructure and site, okay, including the technology used and the location of host, server, terminal, and other end nodes. Together with the network's physical description, the analysis should be evaluate the possibility of extending the network to support new site, new features, or the relocation of existing nodes. For example, the future integration of data and telephone system requires considerable change in the network's configuration. In this case, a detailed evaluation of current option is important. Now come to third step, designing the network topology and solution. So this is the final step in design methodology, is to develop the overall network topology and its appropriate services based on the availability of technology and taking into account the projected traffic pattern, technology performance constraint, and network reliability. The design document describes a set of discrete functions performed by the enterprise edge module and expected level of services provided by each selected methodology as dictated by the service provider. Now come to planning and designing. A WAN network involves number of trade-offs. Okay, so what are these trade-offs? First is application aspect of the requirement driven by the performance analysis. Second trade-off is technical aspect of requirement dealing with the geographic regulations and the effectiveness of the selected topology. And third thing is the cost aspect of the requirement. Cost includes those of equipment and the owned or leased media or communication channel. WAN connections are typically characterized by the cost of leasing WAN infrastructure and transmission media from a service provider. WAN design must therefore trade off between the cost of bandwidth and the bandwidth efficiency. The network design should also be adaptable for inclusion of future technologies and should not include and it should not that limit the adoption of new technologies as they become available. There might be trade-off between considerations and cost throughput, the network design and implementation. For example, many new internetworks are rapidly adopting voice over internet protocol technology. Network design should be able to support this technology without requiring a substantial upgrade by provisioning hardware and software that have option for expansion and upgradability. Now come to application requirement of the WAN design. What are the different requirements related with application? So just as the application requirements driven the enterprise campus design, they also affect the enterprise edge WAN design. Application availability is the key user requirement. The chief component of application availability are response time, throughput, packet loss tolerance, downtime. So these are the requirement. Okay. Recently we have seen the case of outage of Google Drive and Gmail services. So what is the time for that? Network design should be able to support this technology without requiring a substantial upgrade. Okay. So here in this table, we can see that what are the different requirement, and with respect to that, what will be the cost effectiveness. So when we talking about response time, so data file transfer is reasonable. Data interactive application within a second, real-time voice 150 millisecond of one-way delay with low jitter, real-time video minimum delay and jitter. This is our requirement. Okay, high throughput is required, data interactive application is low, real-time voice is low, real-time video is high. Packet loss tolerance is medium in case of file transfer. Data interactive application, it must be low. Real-time voice, it should be low. Real-time video, minimum. Downtime, like in Gmail's case, 3 to 4 3 to 4 hour downtime is reasonable sometimes because it is very big organization and they are trying to upgrade their services. Okay, data interactive application for it is downtime must be low, and real-time voice also it must be low, and real-time video for this it is also low. So let us discuss each of the terminology one by one. What is response time? Response time is the time between user request, means I am requesting for particular thing. I had type one web page and click on login. So this is my request. So whenever I press enter and the host system command execute or response delivery. So as soon as I press enter or login button, it will open that page. So this particular time between a request and the request fulfilled, this is known as response time. Throughput, in data transmission, throughput is the amount of data moved successfully from one place to another place in a given time period. Means I am going to upload my video in Google Drive. Okay. So when I had started at time 10:36 and it will uploaded at 10:37. So this is the amount of data moved successfully from one place to another place within a given time fraction. So suppose 1 GB of data is moved in 1 second and my data is 60 GB. So 60 GB is moved in 1 minute. Then this is my throughput is very high. Packet loss. In telecommunication transmission, packet loss is expressed as bit rate error, which is the percentage of bit that have errors. relative to total number of bits received in a transmission. This might happen because of communication delay or something like whatever may be there in communication. Due to that, packet loss might happen. Now come to reliability. So reliability, although reliability is always important, some applications have requirement that exceeds typical needs like financial services, security exchanges, and emergency police and military operations are examples of organizations that require nearly 100% uptime for critical application. 100% uptime means no one single percent tolerance is there. Okay, these situation imply a requirement for high level of hardware and topological redundancy. Determining the cost of any downtime is essential for determining the relative importance of the network's reliability. So this is very important. Fine. So let us now discuss technical requirement with respect to maximum offered traffic. The goal of every WAN design should be optimize the link performance in terms of offered traffic, link utilization, and response time. To optimize link performance, the designer must balance between end user and network manager requirements, which are usually diametrically opposed. End users usually require minimum application response time over a WAN link, whereas the network manager goal is to maximize the link utilization. WAN resources have finite capacity. Response time problems typically affect only users. For example, it probably does not matter the network manager if query results are returned 120 millisecond sooner rather than later. Response time is thermometer of usability for user. Okay, so response time can be a thermometer of usability of user. Response time. Users perceives the data processing experience in terms of how quickly they can get their screen to update. They view the data processing world in terms of response time and do not usually care about link utilization. So this is very important, response time, and they are not bothered about link utilization relative to the offered traffic. They view the data processing world in terms of what? Response time. Fine. So this graph in uh, this figure shows the response time and the link utilization relative to offered traffic. The response time increases with the offered traffic. Obviously, whenever the traffic is very high, the response time also increases until it reaches an acceptable point for the end user. Similarly, the link utilization increases with the offer traffic to point that the link becomes saturated. The designer's goal is to determine the maximum offer traffic that is acceptable to both the end user and the network managers. However, planning for additional WAN capacity should occur much earlier than the critical point, usually at about 50% link utilization. Additional bandwidth purchasing should start at about 60% utilization. If the link utilization reaches 75%, increase the capacity is critical. So here it is user's view and response time. Okay, and this is the additional means we need to plan additional WAN capacity planning, capacity purchasing, and capacity critical. So this comes at 75%, 50%, and sorry, this must be 75% and this is 60%, not 50%, 60%, and this is technical requirements with respect to bandwidth. So this particular topic here discussed with respect to 2008, year 2008 perspective. So don't go on new scenario because the book has also illustrated the same thing. So what is bandwidth? Bandwidth is the amount of data transmitted or received per unit time, such as 100 Mbps. So in qualitative sense, the requirement bandwidth is proportional to the data complexity for a given level of system performance. Like downloading a photograph in 1 second takes more bandwidth than downloading a page in text in 1 second. Large sound files, computer programs, and minimized videos require even more bandwidth for the acceptable system performance. One of the main issues involved in WAN connection is the selection of appropriate technology that provides sufficient bandwidth. So this table illustrates the range of bandwidth commonly supported by the given technology. So suppose copper, WAN media type is copper, and if the bandwidth is 1.5 to 2 Mbps, it is low bandwidth. From 1.5 Mbps to 45 means 1.5 to 2 and 45 to 34 Mbps. This is medium. 45 34 to 100 Mbps and 10 Gbps. So let us discuss each one. In case of copper, serial or asynchronous serial ISDN TDM DS0 E1 T1 X.25 frame relay ADSL. So up to ADSL we can use copper, and nowadays around I can say 60% of users are using the copper technology. If they are using fixed bandwidth, fixed channel or DSL cable modem, and the speed is greater, not this much. The speed is much greater. So LRE up to 15 Mbps and ADSL 8 Mbps downstream. Okay, 15 Mbps downstream and 8 Mbps downstream, and this is not applicable with copper fiber, copper cable, and 10 Gbps is also not possible. Now come to coaxial cable. Coaxial cable uses shared bandwidth, 27 Mbps downstream and 2.5 Mbps upstream, means almost 10% is the upstream speed. Now come to fiber channel. Fiber channel, it is available with 45, 34 and 100 Mbps and 10 Gbps. Reliance Jio is the common example for this. Ethernet TDM, time division multiplexing. So this uses, when we use this technology, it will give us 45, 34 Mbps medium speed. Then fast Ethernet is ATM over SONET and SDH, packet over SONET or SDH, these technology we are using. And in case of gigabit Ethernet, 10 GB Ethernet, ATM over SONET and SDH, and POS, that is packet over SONET and SDH. So these are the technology. If we consider data, then we use POS. Otherwise, for voice and other things, we use SONET SDH technology. Okay. Now come to 2.4 or 5 gigahertz wireless channel. It varies based on distance and radio frequency quality. Sometimes what happen, we plan to install the fiber channel. Okay, and this fiber channel is connected with WAN technology. Fine, and this WAN is not very is its range is around 10 meter or 20 meter. Fine, and we need to traverse this, means we need to forward this signal to first floor, second floor, and so on. For this purpose we need wireless repeaters or signal extenders. This is very common nowadays. Okay. The required bandwidth is proportional to the data's complexity for a given level of system performance. You must remember this thing. Bandwidth is a Inexpensive in LAN where connectivity is typically limited only by hardware implementation and ongoing maintenance cost. In WAN, bandwidth has typically been the overriding cost, and delay sensitive traffic such as voice and remain separate from data. However, new applications and the economic of supporting them are forcing these conventions to change. Evaluating the cost effectiveness of WAN. In the WAN environment, these are the fixed costs. First thing is equipment purchase, okay, such as modems, channel services, unit per data service, and router and interface. Circuit and switch service provisioning, network management tools and platforms. While recurring cost includes monthly circuit fees from the service provider like 699 plan. This plan is for user like us, but for enterprise level users, they are having different plans like 9999 per month with the speed of 1 Gbps and so on. Okay, the WAN support and maintenance. Sometimes WAN support and maintenance cost is also included, including any network management central center personnel. Means if we want to deploy a person from that organization who provides us these type of WAN technology, and also there is AMC, annual maintenance charge. We can also include this. So now come to this point. These are the cost. Now let us see what are the different type of WANs. From an ownership perspective, WAN links can be thought of in the private category, lease category, or shared category. A private WAN uses private transmission system to connect distant LANs. The owner of private WAN must buy, configure, and maintain the physical layer connectivity such as copper, fiber, wireless, and coaxial, and the terminal equipment required to connect location. This makes private WAN expensive to build, labor intensive to maintain, and difficult to reconfigure and constantly changing business requirements. The advantage of using a private WAN might include higher level of security and transmission quality. So when media and devices are privately owned, transmission quality is not necessarily improved, nor is its reliability necessarily higher. Now come to lease line. Lease line. A lease WAN uses dedicated bandwidth from carrier company with either private or leased terminal equipment. The provider provisions the circuit and provides the maintenance. However, company pays for the allocated bandwidth whether or not is used. And operating costs tend to be high. Some examples include TDM and SONET circuits. Okay. Now come to shared. A shared WAN shares the physical resources with many users. Carriers offer a variety of circuit or packet switching transport network such as MPLS and frame relay. The provider provisions the circuit and provides the maintenance. Linking LANs and private WANs into shared network services is a trade-off among cost, performance, and security. An idea designing an ideal design optimize the cost advantages of shared network services with a company's performance and security requirements. Circuits often span regional or national boundaries, meaning that the service providers handle a connection in toll network. In these cases, devices the subscriber owns and the devices the carrier leads to or shared with the subscriber determine the path. Now come to optimizing bandwidth in a WAN. It is expensive to transmit data over WAN. Therefore, one of many different techniques such as data compression, bandwidth combination, tuning window size, congestion management, queuing and scheduling, congestion avoidance, and traffic shaping and policing can be used to optimize the bandwidth uses and improve overall performance. In our cases, what happens when we are using YouTube videos or some other videos? So we go for setting and set the bandwidth or set the streaming per second to from 1000 to it will be set to 360 kbps channel. Okay, so this will automatically optimize bandwidth in our case, but in organization it is somewhat different. So let us discuss data compression. Compression is the reduction of data size to save the transmission time. There are different compression techniques. Data compression is very, very important. Everywhere we are using data compression. Compression enables more efficient use of available WAN bandwidth, which is often limited and is generally a bottleneck. Compression allows higher throughput because it squeezes packet size and therefore increases the amount of data that can be sent through a transmission resource in a given time period. Compression can be an entire packet of the header only or of the payload only. Payload compression is performed on layer 2 frames payload and therefore compresses the entire layer 3 packet. So at layer 2 compression, if we compress the data at layer 2 means we have compressed a lot more things. Okay, we have already done most of the thing. You can easily measure the success of these solutions using compression ratio and platform latency. However, although compression might seem like a viable WAN bandwidth optimization feature, it might not always be appropriate. Cisco iOS software compression supports FRF 0.9 frame relay payload compression. There are different standards. Link access procedure balanced payload compression using LAMPLZ stack LGS or LGS algorithm, which is commonly referred to as stacker or predictor algorithm STAC. HDLC using LCS X.25 payload compression of encapsulated traffic, Triple P using predictor, Van Jacobson header compression for TCP/IP conforms to RFC 1144 and Microsoft point-to-point compression. These are the different techniques. Compression techniques. So there are two main techniques for compression: statistical and dictionary compression. So it is, if we consider lossless compression, there are based on a statistical compression algorithm, we use Shannon, RLC, Huffman, and arithmetic algorithm. And based on dictionary compression algorithm, we use LZ77 algorithm, LZW algorithm, and LZ78 algorithm. So let us discuss each one in detail. What is statistical compression and dictionary compression? The basic function of data compression is to reduce the size of frame of data to be transmitted over a network link. Data compression algorithm uses two type of encoding technique. Actually, these are the encoding techniques. Fine. Because we compress the data, therefore it is known as encoding. Statistical compression, which uses a fixed, usually non-adaptive encoding method, is best applied to single application where the data is relatively consistent and predictable. Because the traffic on the internetwork is neither consistent nor predictable, statistical algorithms are usually not suitable for data compression implementation on routers. So this is not suitable for data compression implementation on router. Now come to dictionary compression is the Lampel-Zip algorithm, which is based on dynamically encoded dictionary that replaces a continuous stream of characters with codes. The symbol represented by codes are stored in a memory in a dictionary style list. Therefore, it is known as dictionary encoding or dictionary compression technique. This approach is more responsive to variations in data than statistical compression. So actually, this is non-adaptive technique and this is adaptive. Cisco internetworking devices use the stacker, abbreviated as STAC, STAC, and predictor data compression algorithm. Developed by STAC Electronics, STAC is based on the Lampel-Zip compression algorithm. The Cisco iOS software uses an optimized version of STAC or stack that provides good compression ratios but require many CPU cycles to perform compression. The predictor compression algorithm tries to predict the next sequence of character in the data stream by using an index to look up a sequence in compression dictionary. It then examines the next sequence in the data stream to see whether it matches. If so, that sequence replaces the looked up sequence in the dictionary. If not, the algorithm locates the next character sequence in the index and the process begins again. The index updates itself by hashing a few of the most recent character sequences from the input stream. The predictor data compression algorithm was obtained from the public domain and optimized by Cisco engineers. It uses CPU cycles more efficiently than the stack does, but it also requires more memory. So this is more means memory intensive. What is memory intensive? Stack algorithm, STAC. Real-time transport protocol and compression, RTP and CRTP. Real-time protocol, that is RTP, is used for carrying packetized audio and video traffic over an IP network. RTP is not intended for data traffic which uses TCP or user datagram protocol. RTP provides an end-to-end network transport function included for applications that have real-time transmission requirement such as audio or simulation data over multicast or unicast network services. Because RTP header compression, that is CRTP, compresses the voice header from 40 bytes to 2 or 4 bytes, it offers significant bandwidth saving. CRTP is also referred to as compressed real-time transfer protocol. Hardware-assisted data compression achieves the same goal as software-based data compression, except that the accelerated compression rates by offloading the task from the main CPU to the specialized compression circuit. Compression is implemented in compression hardware that is installed in a system slot. Now come to impact of compression and encryption on routers performance. So system performance can be affected when compression or encryption is performed in software rather than hardware. Perform the operations to determine whether these services are stressing a router's CPU or not. So first operation we need to perform is use the show process Cisco iOS software command to obtain a baseline reading before enabling encryption or compression. Enable the service and use the show process. Use the show process for command again to assess the differences. Cisco recommend that you disable compression or encryption if the router CPU load exceeds 40%. Okay, because compression requires some processing, okay, to decompress the data or to take back the data. So this will automatically use the CPU. Automatically not, it requires CPU. So CPU overhead increases. Therefore, it is recommended that if the router CPU load exceeds 40% and that you disable and then you need to disable the compression if encryption is enabled. Also, do not enable compression on your router if the files being sent across the network are already compressed, such as zip file. If the file is coming already in zip format, then why we need to go for zipping the file again? Okay, so this is not recommended in Cisco. Bandwidth combination. This is another technique for efficient use of WAN. Point-to-point protocol is commonly used to establish a direct connection between two devices. Point-to-point is protocol is a layer 2 protocol for connection over synchronous and asynchronous circuits. There is concept of SDLC and HDLC. So point-to-point protocol is used when connecting computers using serial cable, phone lines, trunk lines, cellular telephone, telephones, specialized radio links, or fiber optic links. So all these things involves the point-to-point protocol. ISPs use point-to-point protocol for customer dial-up access to the internet. An encapsulated form of point-to-point protocol is triple PoE, already discussed, or triple PoE. This is over ADM and this is over Ethernet, is commonly used in a similar role with DSL internet services. Okay. A multi-link point-to-point protocol, also abbreviated as MLP, logically connects multiple links between two systems as needed to provide extra bandwidth. The bandwidth of the two or more physical communication links, such as analog modem, ISDN, and over analog or digital links, are logically aggregated, resulting in an increase in overall throughput. Fine. MLP is based on IETF standard RFC 1990, the point-to-point multi-link protocol, or MP. Next consideration is window size. Window size is the maximum number of frames or amount of data the sender can transmit before it must wait for an acknowledgement. The current window is defined as the number of frames or amount of data that can be sent at the current time. This is always less than or equal to the window size. Window size is an important tuning factor for achieving high throughput on WAN link. The acknowledgement procedure confirms the correct delivery of data. So whenever we are talking about windowing, okay, so windowing is based on two-way handshaking or three-way handshaking. So acknowledgement is must. If we send the data, you must need the acknowledgement for the data. So this correct delivery of data to the recipient is very important. If the TCP window size is set to 8192 octet, the sender must stop after sending 8192 octet in the event that the receiver does not send an acknowledgement. Okay. Now, window size is important tuning factor already seen here, and this might be unacceptable for long or high latency. Okay, WAN links with significant delay in which the transmitter would waste the majority of its time for waiting. The more acknowledgements because of smaller window size and longer the distance, the lower the it will lower the throughput. Therefore, on highly reliable WAN links that do not require many acknowledgements, the window size should be adjusted to higher value to enable maximum throughput. However, the risk of frequent transmission in case of poor quality links, which can dramatically reduce the throughput. Adjustable window and equipment that can adapt to line condition are strongly requirement. So with this window size, let us discuss selective acknowledgement. What is selective acknowledgement? Okay. Selective acknowledgement, the TCP, this is TCP selective acknowledgement mechanism, which is RFC 2018 standard. TCP selective acknowledgement options helps overcome the limitation of TCP acknowledgements. So here we can see that request is sent, then segment 1 acknowledgement, segment 2 acknowledgement has lost, segment 3, segment 4, likewise it is coming. Okay, request and segment 1, segment 2, then acknowledgement, and several things are there. So TCP performance can be affected if multiple packets are lost. Here, in the case of one packet loss is there. From one window of data, a TCP sender learns about only one packet per round trip. With selective acknowledgement enables using a IP-TCP selective acknowledgement global configuration command in Cisco IOS. The receiver returns selective acknowledgement packet to the sender, informing the sender about data has been received. Means 17th acknowledgement I am sending or 18th acknowledgement I am sending. There are selective acknowledgement up to this much data has been received. The sender can resend only the missing data segments. Okay, fine. This feature is used only when multiple packet drop from a TCP window. Performance is not affected when the feature is enabled, but it is not used. Queuing to improve link utilization. So to improve the link utilization, Cisco has developed quality of service techniques to avoid temporary congestion and provide preferential treatment for the critical application. Quality of service mechanisms such as queuing and scheduling, policing, limiting, and the access rate and traffic shaping enables network operators to deploy and operate large-scale network that efficiently handle both bandwidth-hungry, such as multimedia and web traffic, and mission-critical applications such as a host-based application. So for these purpose, we use queuing. Quality of services does not create bandwidth. Clear? It is not able to create the bandwidth. Rather, quality of service optimize the use of existing resource, including bandwidth. If WAN links are constantly congested, either the network require greater bandwidth or compression should be used. Quality of service queuing strategies are unnecessary if WAN links are never congested. If WAN links are not going to congest, then why should we use quality of service queuing? So queuing is very important. Congestion management includes two separate processes: queuing, which separates traffic into various queues or buffers. So here in this diagram, you can see that on arrival of each packet, it is forwarded to different queues. Okay, and or buffers on scheduling, which decides from which queue traffic is to be sent next. So priority queuing is there, and some scheduling policies are there for the queues. Like in operating system, we have already done. Queuing allows network administrators to manage the varying demand of application on network and routers. When positioning the role of queuing in network, the primary issue is the duration of congestion. Queuing is configured on outbound interfaces, okay, and is appropriate for cases in which WAN links are congested from time to time. So congestion, whenever congestion is there, we implement queuing. Okay, so there are two type of queues: hardware queue and software queue. Hardware queue uses FIFO strategy. Okay, hardware queue uses FIFO strategy. So this is suppose front of queue, and this is and rear of queue. So first in first out is the strategy followed in hardware, which is necessary for interface drivers to transmit packet one by one. The hardware queue is sometimes referred to as transmit queue or TX queue. Now come to software queue. Schedule packets into hardware queue based on the quality of service requirement. Okay, and there are different queues, like in software queue. What is the things? Weighted fair queue, priority queue, custom queuing, class-based queuing, and low latency queuing. These are the types of queue coming under software queue. So let us discuss each in very small detail so that you may be able to understand what is weighted fair queue, priority queuing, custom queuing, class-based weighted fair queuing, and low latency queuing. So in the software queue, let us first discuss weighted fair queuing. Weighted fair queuing handles the problem inherent in queuing scheme on a FIFO basis. So this uses FIFO, okay, FIFO strategy. And when FIFO is implemented, then it is very simple. Weighted fair queuing assesses the size of each message and ensures that high volume senders do not force low volume senders out of the queue. Weighted fair queue sorts different traffic flows into separate streams or conversation sessions and alternatively dispatches them. The algorithm also solves the problem of round trip delay variability. When high volume conversations are active, their transfer rates and inter arrival periods are quite predictable. Weighted fair queue is enabled by default on most low speed serial interfaces. So this is enabled for low speed serial interface with a speed at or below 2048 Mbps. Okay. On Cisco routers, faster links use FIFO queue by default. This makes it very easy to configure. There are few adjustable parameters but does not allow much control over which traffic takes priority. Now come to priority queuing. This is the flow diagram of priority queuing. Priority queuing is useful for time sensitive mission critical protocols such as IBM System Network Architecture SNA, IBM's SNA protocol. Okay, SNAP. PQ or priority queuing works by establishing four interface output queue: high, medium, normal, and low. High, medium, normal, and low. Each serving at different level of priority. Queues are configurable for queue type, traffic assignment, and size. The dispatching algorithm begins servicing a queue only when all high priority queues are empty. This way, PQ ensures that the most important traffic placed in the higher level queue gets through first at the expense of other traffic types. In this diagram, the high priority queue is always emptied before the low priority queue are serviced. Traffic can be assigned to various queues based on protocol, port number, or other criteria. Because priority queuing requires extra processing, you should not recommend it unless it is necessary. Okay, so incoming packet is coming, whether queue is full or not. If it is full, then it is sent to somewhere else. If no, means if it is not full, then place in the queue. Okay, now high packet, whether the preference is high, medium, or low. If it is high, then go to medium. If it is not high, then go to medium. If it is not medium, then go to normal. If it is not normal, then go to low. If it is not low, then again check for whether it is high or low. And if it is yes, then check for timeout and again dispatch the packet, and this way it will work. And if the queue is full or the process is completed, it will go to the this box. Okay. Now come to CQ. CQ is custom queuing. Custom queue is Queuing is different approach for prioritizing traffic like PQ. Traffic can be assigned to various queue based on protocol, port number, or other criteria. However, CQ handles the queues in a round robin fashion. So here the handling of queue is on the basis of round robin fashion. CQ works by establishing up to 16 interfaces output queues that are configurable in terms of type, traffic assignment, and size. This custom queuing specifies the transmission window size of each queue in bytes. When the appropriate number of frames is transmitted from a queue, the transmission window size is reached and the next queue is checked. CQ is less drastic solution for mission critical applications than PQ because it guarantees some level of service to all the traffic. CQ is fairer than PQ, but PQ is more powerful for prioritizing a mission critical protocol. For example, with custom queue, you can prioritize a particular protocol by assigning it more queuing space. However, it will never monopolize the bandwidth. So here in this figure, we show next queue, initially start with next queue, current queue, and reach the transmission window size. If yes, then go for next queue or current queue. If no, then dispatch the packet. If more you want to dispatch, yes, then go to current queue and so on. If no, then next queue. So this is the custom queuing service. Each queue in a round robin fashion, one by one, it will be executed. Now come to class-based weighted fair queuing. Okay, so class-based weighted fair queuing allows you to define traffic class and then assign characteristics to it. For example, you can designate the minimum bandwidth delivered to the class during the congestion. Class-based weighted fair queue extends the standard weighted fair queue functionality to provide support for the user-defined traffic classes. With class-based weighted fair queue, traffic classes are defined based on the match criteria, including protocol, access control list, and input interfaces. Packets that satisfies the match criteria for class constitute the traffic for the class. A queue is reserved for each class and traffic that belongs to class is dedicated to the queue for the class. After a class has been defined according to match criteria, you can assign its characteristic including bandwidth, weight, and the maximum queue packet limit. The bandwidth assigned to a class is guaranteed bandwidth delivered to the class during time of congestion. The queuing packet limit is maximum number of packet allowed to accumulate the queue for the class. Packet that belongs to a class are subject to the bandwidth and the queue limit that characterize the data. For class-based weighted fair queue, the weight for the packet that belongs to a specific class derives from the bandwidth assigned to the class during configuration. Therefore, the bandwidth assigned to packet of a class determines the order in which packets are sent. All packets are serviced fairly based on weight. No class of packet may be granted strict priority. This scheme poses problem for voice traffic, which is largely intolerant of delay and variation in delay. Then low latency queue, that is last queuing type. Low latency queuing belongs to a strict priority queue or class-based weighted fair queue. It is combination of priority queue and class-based weighted fair queue. A strict priority queue allows delay sensitive data such as voice to the dequeued data sent first before packets or other queue are dispatched, giving delay sensitive data preferential treatment over the traffic. Without low latency queue, CBWF or class-based weighted fair queue provides weighted fair queue based on demand classes with no strict priority queue available for real-time traffic. Congestion avoidance. Congestion avoidance techniques monitor traffic loads so that congestion can be anticipated and avoided before it becomes problematic. or it becomes problematic, not comes problematic. If congestion avoidance techniques are not used in interface, queue become full. Packet trying to enter in the queue are discarded regardless of what traffic they hold. This is known as trail drop. Packet arriving after the tail of the queue are dropped. Congestion avoidance technique allows packet from stream identified as being eligible for early discard, those with lower priority to be dropped with the queue is getting full. Congestion avoidance work well with TCP based traffic. TCP has a built-in flow control mechanism so that when a source detects a drop packet, the source slows its transmission. Weighted random early detection, that is WERD, is the Cisco implementation of the random early detection mechanism RED randomly drops packet when the queue gets to a specified level. When it is nearing full, RED is designing to work with TCP traffic. When TCP packets are dropped, TCP's flow control mechanism slows the transmission rate and then progressively begins to increase it again. Therefore, RED result in source slowing down and hopefully avoiding congestion. So weighted random early detection extends random early detection by using IP precedence bit in the IP packet header to determine which traffic should be dropped. The drop selection process is weighted by IP precedence. Similarly, differentiated services code point DSCP based uh, weighted random early detection WRED uses the DSCP value in the IP packet header in the drop selection process. WRED selectively discard lower priority traffic when the interface begins to get congested. Starting in iOS release 12.28t, Cisco implementation is extension of WRED called Explicit Congestion Notification (ECN). ECN is defined in RFC 3168, the additional explicit congestion notification to the IP, and uses the lower 2-bit in the TOS byte. Devices use these two ECN bits to communicate that they are experiencing congestion. Whenever this ECN bit is going, it shows it experiencing congestion. When ECN is in use, it makes packet as experiencing congestion rather than dropping them. If the sender are ECN capable and the queue has not yet reached its maximum threshold, if the queue does not reach the maximum, packet are dropped as they would be without ECN. Traffic shaping and policing to rate limit traffic classes. Traffic shaping and traffic policing is shown in this figure. It is also referred to as committed access rate. It are similar mechanism in that both impact traffic and take action based on various characteristic of that traffic. These characteristics can be based on whether the traffic is over or under given rate, or is based on some bits in the IP packet header such as DSCP or IP precedence. Policing either discard the packet or modified some aspect of it, such as its IP precedence, when the policing agent determining that the packet meets a given criteria. For example, an enterprise policy management scheme could deem to the traffic generated by a particular resource, such as first 100 kbps, at first class traffic, so it receives a top priority marking. Traffic above the first 100 kbps generated by that same resource could drop to a lower priority class or be discarded altogether. Similarly, all incoming streaming moving picture expert group, that is MPEG 1 audio layer 3 MP3 traffic could be limited for example 10% of all available bandwidth so that it does not serve other starve other applications. So this is shown how traffic is shaping. If it is going beyond this, it will automatically shape to this. So this is policing actually. This is policing and this is shaping the traffic to constant rate. That is the maximum rate. Okay. So by comparison, traffic shaping attempts to adjust the transmission rate of packet that match a certain criteria. Topologies that have high speed links such as central site feeding into lower speed links such as a remote or branch site often experience bottleneck at the remote and because of the speed mismatch. Traffic shaping helps eliminate the bottleneck situation by throttling back traffic volume at the source end. It reduces the flow of outbound traffic from a router's interface by holding packets in buffer and releasing them at a pre-configured rate. Routers can be configured to transmit at lower bitrate than the interface bitrate. One common use of traffic shaping in the enterprise is to smooth the flow of traffic across the single link towards a single provider transport network to ensure compliance with the traffic contrast, avoiding service provider policing at the receiving end. Traffic shaping reduces the busty nature of transmitted data and is most useful when the contract rate is less than the line rate. Traffic shaping can also respond to signal congestion from the transport network when the traffic rates exceed the contract rate. Token bucket algorithm. A term you might encounter related to a traffic shaping and policing is token bucket. Okay. In the token bucket analogy, tokens are put into bucket at a certain rate. So this is the token arrival rate in R bytes per second. Tokens are put into bucket at this rate and the bucket itself has a specified capacity. If the token fills to its capacity, newly arriving tokens are discarded. Each token is permission for the source to send certain number of bits into the network. To send a packet, the shaper or policer must remove from the bucket a number of tokens equal to representation of packet size. If not enough tokens are in the bucket to send packet, the packet either waits until the bucket has enough tokens or the packet is discarded or marked down. If the bucket is already full of tokens, incoming tokens overflow and not available to future packet. Consequently, at any time, the largest bus a source can send into the network is roughly proportional to the size of the bucket. Note that the token bucket mechanism used for traffic shaping has both token bucket and data buffer or queue. If it did not have a data buffer, it would be policer for traffic shaping arriving packet that cannot be sent immediately are delayed in the data buffer. The information in this sidebar was derived from Cisco IOS Quality of Service Solution Configuration Guide Release 12.2 available at cisco.com. In this lecture, we have covered different aspects of WAN design, including application requirement of WAN design with respect to response time, throughput, packet loss, reliability, technical requirement, maximum offered traffic and bandwidth, evaluating the cost effectiveness of WAN ownership, optimizing bandwidth in a WAN, data compression, bandwidth combination, window size, queuing to improve the link utilization, congestion avoidance, and traffic shaping and policing to rate limit traffic classes. So these are the different things we have discussed in this. In next video, we will discuss using WAN technologies. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Have a nice day. Have a nice time.